Hello and welcome to the Many Faces of Cancer podcast. I am your host, Melissa Grosboll, and joining me today is Jamie Lynn Bailey. And Jamie is a yoga instructor, certified personal trainer, and breast cancer survivor who's always trying to keep up with life's twists and turns. Whether it's balancing in tree pose or juggling her daughter's dance and cheer schedules, she's all about finding strength, grace, and a little humor in the chaos. Her yoga journey began 22 years ago and took on new life after her breast cancer experience, inspiring her to become a certified instructor. She's got taking continuous education in Pilates, strength development, HIIT training, cycle, and electromuscle stimulation. Holy cow. As a breast cancer navigating osteopenia, she understands that wellness is deeply personal and thriving looks unique for everyone. Outside of the studio or gym, she's living life with her wonderful husband and two active daughters who keep her moving. Her home is also happily ruled by two golden retrievers who act like giant puppies and a cat who is very aware that she's the boss. So welcome to the show, Jamie.
Thank you, Melissa. Great to be here.
I totally understand about cats being the boss. We were the opposite. We had two cats and a dog. And, the cats are 6-7 pounds. The dog was 65 pounds. And they beat her up all the time.
Yeah. It's so true. Our cat will lurk behind things. And as soon as a dog will come around, she'll pounce, It's hilarious.
It's like, this is my home.
Exactly.
Yes. And I also like to say that to a dog, your family, and to a cat, your staff.
Oh, 100%. Yes. If she doesn't want to snuggle, don't mess with her because you're going to get bit or scratched or something,
Or both.
Or both at the same time. And then the dogs are like, okay, I love you.
Yes, my turn. I will take the snuggles.
Exactly.
All right. So we have a lot to unpack with all of this, Jamie. So I want you to kind of start. Just tell me a little bit about where you were, what was going on in your life when you were diagnosed. I believe it was right around when COVID happened, right?
It was actually crazy. It was a crazy time. I actually found a lump in 2019, but didn't actually get diagnosed until January of 2020. And so the world was kind of starting to scare on COVID. And so we were kind of starting to freak out. And then when I had my surgery, it was right in the midst of when the hospitals were shutting down. So it's March of 2020. So everything was shutting down. They were wanting to get me in and out and do this double mastectomy and then send me home the same day. And it's kind of scary, just having to deal with it, navigate during that time. But we always make it through.
I know. So you said that you found the lump in 2019. So did you have kind of an easy process of hey, to my doctor, I found this, what should we do? Kind of, that kind of thing.
It wasn't as easy as I would have hoped, just because at the time I didn't have insurance because my husband had lost a major client. And so we had lapsed on our insurance at the end of the year. And so I had to actually wait 2 months in order to reapply and get insurance by January in order to get the most of the testing that I needed. So I was able to get my mammogram and ultrasound, but then they wanted to do the biopsy right away, and I couldn't afford to do the biopsy out of pocket.
And so $3,000 or something, I think mine was. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so crazy. And if you don't
have want it right then, before they'll even see you. Here, how would you like to make your payment?
Yeah. And then they call you 2 days before, and it's okay, I'm going to walk in with a suitcase full of unmarked bills. I don't have that kind of money. So,
and you're totally freaked out because, oh my gosh, I could have cancer. And then all they care about is, how are you going to pay for it? It's this is the last thing I need to worry about.
I know. It's so true. Yeah, it is so true. So it was not easy in that sense. And then once I was able to get insurance and go in and everything, I ended up having the testing done, and they actually found 2 lumps. So I had found one in my armpit, and they found one further in under my nipple. Wow. Both were malignant. So they ended up doing that biopsy, and it took a couple tries for me to do the biopsy because the morning of the biopsy, of course, I woke up and I was puking. So So of course I had to reschedule. Thankfully, the hospital was really great, and they're like, "Well, since she's sick, we'll get her in like a couple days later." But yeah, I mean, 2 days later, you remember where you are, what you're doing, all the things when you get that phone call, and I just remember that lady saying to me, "Are you driving?" And I was like, "Oh gosh, no, I'm not driving." But now I know exactly what you're going to say to me.
They like to do it, oh, let's make it easy for her. But as soon as they say that, you're like, okay, I know what the results are.
Exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, it was kind of a blow, a devastating blow, especially when we're trying to navigate how this world is going through chaos now, and like, you know, China and Japan, they're shutting down, and now we're talking about the United States shutting down, and we're like looking at the news all the time, like what's happening? Are we going to end up shutting down? And it was pretty intense, kind of going through all of that during that time of chaos. But I'll tell you, being a control freak like myself, I was like, oh, my mother-in-law is going to come. I'm going to write this whole journal of like all these things that she needs to do for the kids. We have 2 kids, and they have to go here and there and all these places. And so I'm like writing all these things meticulously. And then it was like, she came, and it was pretty much like I just took that whole thing, tore it up, and threw it in the garbage,
Because they
because
weren't doing anything.
didn't matter. Yeah, exactly. So talk about like try to control things, and it didn't even matter. God was like, no.
So now the first one, the lump that you found, was that actually in a lymph node? So were you already kind of, stage 2, stage 3, or was it somewhere else?
So I'm not exactly sure if the node I found was in a lymph node, or that tumor I found was in a lymph node. It was in my armpit. When they first diagnosed me, they told me I was stage 1, and that they didn't think I was going to need chemo or radiation. But after they had done, I opted in for a double mastectomy without nipple sparing. And they actually said once they did that my margins are really close. And so they told me I needed to do chemo and radiation at that point in time. And it had gone to my sentinel node. They ended up taking 12 lymph nodes out of my left side, so it was on my left side. But I just opted in for the double mastectomy because I was like, let's get it all taken care of. I was 36 when I was diagnosed, and I had 2 young kids, and I was
Wow.
like, I want to see you get married. I want to see you have babies. I'm going to be around for all of this. And navigating that point in time, it was kind of hard. It was like they were 6 and 4, and I remember talking to my cousin. I'm like, how am I going to tell the kids this? Like, how do you tell this to your little kids? And she gave me a perfect way to say it. And I will say this to anybody who goes through this is, you can tell your girls. I told them, you know what? Mommy's got something yucky in her boobie, and the doctors have to go in and get rid of it and take it away and give me new ones. And I'm going to look like Barbie because Barbie has no nipples. So and I was like, that is so perfect, because kids know Barbie,
Yes.
So so that was my explanation, and they were okay. That was okay.
I got to write that down. I'm going to look like Barbie. I love that.
Yeah, I thought that was really a sweet way to go about saying it, and so yeah. Anyways, I like
And
to share.
they're too young to understand cancer and, all the possible ramifications of it. So I think maybe as much as possible, you were in the sweet spot where they didn't understand enough to really get freaked out about it. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, doctor's going to take care of it, and I'm going to be even better than before because I'll look like Barbie.
Right. There you go. And I didn't want to tell them that I was sick, because I didn't want them to think about the next time they got sick that was going to look the same. Um,
Gotcha.
so I didn't really want to tell them I was sick. I wanted to tell them there was something yucky in there, and they were going to take it out, and this is what the process was, instead of just being like, oh, I'm sick. And then they're gonna be like, Mom, the next time they get a runny nose or something, and they're like, oh my gosh, am I sick? And I have to go through all of that stuff that you went through. I didn't want it to look the same, in their eyes. So yeah,
That's
I tried to stay
fantastic.
away from that.
And how
Mhm.
did they do with, all your chemo and radiation? Because I'm sure there were days that you were down and, and did they kind of freak out as far as what's going on with mom, or were you able to really handle it well and tell them, the truth, but in an easier way?
Yeah. They did pretty well with it. I know we actually have a couple of pictures my husband had taken on one of my more, worst days. And I was just laying there, and my oldest was hugging me, and both of our eyes were closed, and you see one tear kind of running down my nose. And
Oh,
she was just hugging me, just like, Mom, I love you. And I just want to give you this hug to make you feel okay. And, so I felt like they were really troopers for me. They'd come in and they would do little cute things on the bed and sing songs. And, when I was laid up, or they would help me with the in-body injector I'd have after chemo. They would help, their dad remove it and things like that. So they were really helpful and wanted to be a part of it. I think that probably one of the harder times would have been when I was going through chemo, and after the in-body injector would go off, after I was home. That was some of the worst time, just because I would feel a lot of fatigue and pain through my body. And so I would have to tell them, you can't hug mommy right now because I'm really sore, so but then they would do other things. They'd make me lunch, or they'd make me dinner, they'd bring me hot tea or water or whatever, and they were really sweet. They were like my little nurses. It was really
oh, I
sweet.
love that.
Yeah.
And now, so this is what, close to 5 years later, do they remember any of that, or they kind of, okay, mom's okay now kind of thing, and it's just past?
I think the older one, Emma, remembers a little bit more probably than Aria does. Aria was pretty young. But Emma, they definitely, she remembers some stuff, and they do know, like, anytime, especially my little one, anytime they see a breast cancer ribbon, or anytime they're drawing a picture for me, it's always like a breast cancer ribbon or a pink heart or something really sweet, like that. And they do know, I go to checkups, and sometimes I'll get nervous, you kind of always do before you go into those checkups and everything. And they're always like, Mom, it's going to be okay, and so they're still really supportive. I wouldn't say that there's too much lingering there. And I think really they had a pretty easy time going through
Good.
all of that. Yeah.
Good.
So I think they were young enough.
And one of the things that you said to me before we started recording is that you really did your best to bring humor to the situation as much as possible. And I absolutely love that, because, in so many ways, oh my gosh, it's cancer, it's treatment, it's chemo, I'm going to lose my hair, all the things. And we can a lot of times lose sight of the humor in the situation. So can you tell us a little bit about, some of the things that you did to continue to bring humor to the whole process?
Absolutely. Some of the things that I loved bringing humor to it, I'm working on a book, and one of the things that I want to put in the book is, or I'm talking about putting in the book, is like the shower dance. And the shower dance is basically, every time you go through another stage, there's some part of your body that either can't get wet, or, you can't get this part wet, or you can't move this way, or you can't move your arms. And so it's constantly the battle of the shower dance, so it's like this way or this way. And so having to do the shower dance and kind of manipulate how you're going to be in the shower every day was kind of a funny thing. I also, because I did not do nipple sparing, and I still don't have any nipples. I just went actually under recently a new reconstruction on my left side. But I just got the clear on that. But I don't have any nipples. And she's like, oh, well, I don't need to see you again unless you want to do nipples. So she's like, but get these, these little prosthetic nipples. You can get them online. And I was like, okay. So I got these prosthetic nipples, and you just, stick them on or whatever.
So kind
And
of like pasties.
yeah, they're like
Okay.
pasty. Yeah. And you can get them like different colors, different shapes, different
Oh
sizes.
my
I mean,
gosh.
it's like so crazy. So I got these. She's like, because you want to know, how it's going to look. And then, you put it on, and then you can, come in with them, and we can see exactly where to place them. It's really great. It's really bizarre. Like, you get to like make your own nipples. So build your own nipples, right? Like build a bear. But I joke with my daughter. There was one day I was like, Aria, put this on your forehead and walk down to your dad, and she's like, no, mom, no, mom. And so I was like, okay, so I'll like stick them on my like butt cheeks, and I'll like pull up my shorts and like walk around the house and see if anybody notices that I have like nipples on. So,
Oh my
anyways,
gosh.
I try to do some of these funny things because it's just, it just makes light out of some of this, and I mean, who better to do it than somebody who's kind of been there too, and makes you feel better a little bit about going through some of that. I know when I had, when you go through certain things, and in my case, I had my ovaries removed, I had my breasts removed, and then I lost all my hair. And so there were a lot of things that made me feel less like a woman, even though, that's not what makes us women. But you go through that. It's part of a stage. And so I remember getting all the different kinds of wigs. I mean, my kids were into Descendants, so I got like an Uma wig, and it was like all the braids and like it was like so cool, and pink wigs. And I mean, I would do all the things, and you can, pretend like with my husband, like, oh, which wig do you like? But who do you want me to be today? But just having all the different wigs like that was really fun. And then I also remember like being at a point in time where I was like, I don't even want to wear these wigs anymore. They're so hot. And so I was like, I'm just going to paint on my eyebrows and put on fake lashes, and I'm just going to do the dang thing. And I just go out bald, and it was like, we're just going to do it.
That's awesome. I know I tend to forget about that because I did not do chemo, so I didn't lose my hair. And when we think about it, it's like, oh, you lose the hair on your head. Like I tend to forget that you lose all of your hair. Like it's not just on the top of your head. And I interviewed a gentleman a couple of weeks ago, and he said that his thing was he lost all the hair inside of his nose. And so, he's out in the cold. He lives in Pennsylvania, and like just stuff's like pouring out of his nose. And it's like, oh my gosh, I have no hair in there.
Yeah. I remember too, like, because you lose your eyelashes and your eyebrows and stuff. And so one of the funny things, kind of another excerpt from my book, is how I would wear the fake eyelashes. But what really kind of stunk was when they were falling out. If one landed in your eye, you couldn't lift your eyelid to get it out because you had no eyelashes to grab a hold of.
Oh my gosh.
Like, trying to like eye drop and move it around and eye drop and move it around, to try and get that out of there. It was crazy, things you don't think about.
Right. But also it's nice to, and I mean, I don't know if it was humorous in the moment, but it's those things that end up making for the best stories that you remember. I don't want to say fondly, because there's nothing fondly about cancer, but going through everything to have those experiences to think back on and laugh.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
I love that. So you had said you just had another surgery not too long ago. So how many surgeries, I guess, have you had in the past 5 years?
So I've had a total of 10 surgeries.
Wow.
And that includes my port. I also, in 2020 was not just diagnosed with breast cancer, but I also had basal cell carcinoma on my head. And so I actually had that Mohs surgery before I had any of the other surgeries. And so I had that done on my head. And of course, most of you, if you know what a Mohs surgery is, they're kind of just scraping down and then testing and cauterizing and scraping down and testing and cauterizing until they get a clean scrape. And so I had this spot on my head for years, and we kept trying to burn it off and all these things, and it just wasn't. And so it ended up being basal cell. And so one of the things I was mostly worried about whenever I started losing my hair was, oh my gosh, you're going to see this big indentation in my head from where that spot is. But it feels worse, I think, than it really is. But since then I've had a total of 10 surgeries. I had 2 this last year, only because I had gotten into a car accident in May, and I ended up with a capsular contraction on my left side. And so we had to release that, take out the scar tissue, and then do a fat graft. So I'm actually just about 6 weeks out from my last and final surgery, hopefully, which was a fat graft just to, make sure the bag was okay. And, because obviously when you have radiation done too, it really makes your skin a lot tighter, especially on that side. And so putting that fat graft in really made a huge difference for me to make it a lot softer and more realistic.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's wow. Mm-hmm. And there is a thing to be said. I interviewed a woman who, she's kind of a pioneer in the flat movement. They call them flatties, and people who choose aesthetic flat closure. And there's something to be said. Like every choice has its consequences and things that you have to deal with. And, it's just a lot of surgeries. You think like, oh, I'm gonna go to sleep. They're gonna take my boobs, they're gonna put in implants and life is great and that's all that there is to it. But there's so much more to
Yeah.
it as well. And these are decisions that I guess hopefully you have a great doctor who will explain all of that to you and let you be able to make, the best decision for yourself, for your family. And you being so young when you were diagnosed, I'm sure there wasn't a lot of really thought about should I do this or not.
Right. I was 36 when I was diagnosed, and my cousin actually had gone through DCIS the year before, and so when I was first diagnosed, she was one of the first people I called, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, Diane, what? Um, how do you go through this?" Because she opted in for a double mastectomy as well because she's like, I don't want to deal with this again. Actually, unfortunately, later she ended up with it a second time because they had missed some breast tissue and they had to go in and do chemo and radiation at that point in time. But she's doing well now.
Yeah.
But she was one of the first people I called because I was like, oh my goodness, I don't even have to think about it. I want them gone. And that was my decision before I even talked to the surgeon. And then when I did talk to the surgeon, she was giving me the options, and I said, I'm going to stop you there. I don't even want a lumpectomy. I just want a mastectomy because I'm 36, and I want to just have them replaced. If down the road, in years from, I'm in my 40s now, and so if down the road I ever have any complications or another capular contraction or anything like that, that might be a time where I say, you know what, maybe I just want them removed. And at that point in time, I'll make that decision. But I think for me, this was the right choice.
Oh, absolutely. It's like these things are trying to kill me.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
Yeah,
just have them gone.
totally. Mm-hmm.
And I love how you said that because a lot of people feel that way and I went through a real anger stage after mine about, okay, this disease is trying to take away everything that makes me feminine,
Mm-hmm.
and I was over 50 when I was diagnosed. So I was already in menopause, but, they take your breasts, they put you into menopause. They give you this anti-hormone therapy, which removes all hormones from your body. And, you lose your hair, like all the things. And it's just like it used to make me so angry. But then on the flip side, like you said, that's not what makes you, feminine. And there are so many ways to have that sexuality and that femininity that have nothing to do with the aesthetics, I guess that you would say. And that helped a lot.
Yes, absolutely. You lose your hair, go rock it. You know what? You lose your eyebrows. You know what? I've always wanted to paint those suckers on. Like you lose your eyelashes. You know what? I'm gonna go try those magnetic ones. Go try them. Try all the things that you maybe haven't done before. But I do think, and I think on the flip side, on whenever you're through it and on the other side, you look back on all that and how people always say, "Oh, you're so strong. Oh, you're so strong," and really, you don't know how strong you are until you just have no choice. Until you just have to do it, and then you do it, and then you come out the other side, and you're like, "What just happened? What did I just do?" And you think about it in that nature. But I think also, you were saying too, they put you on these estrogen drugs and anti-hormonal drugs and those kind of things. And for me, a lot of those drugs made me really sick. They gave me a lot of like different reactions and side effects that not everybody has. My cousin didn't go through side effects like I did. But I was really blessed because I met a functional medicine doctor that I absolutely love. Her name is Dr. Jill Carnahan, and she's with Flatiron Functional Medicine in Boulder. And I met her through a friend, and she is also a breast cancer survivor. And she got me on something. She told me, she's like, I'm never going to recommend you something that an oncologist or your doctor is telling you to do. I'm never going to suggest against it, but I will tell you there's always natural alternatives. And so I tried 3 of the 4 different drugs. And then with side effects, and I finally went to her and I was like, listen, I want to try something else. And I tried something else, and my oncologist was still trying to push a tamoxifen on me. And I was like, no, 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 no. I'm going to try this, and just give me some time trying this. I'm seeing you every 3 months. I'm seeing her. Like, I just let me try this. And finally my oncologist is like, what are you doing? Can you tell me what you're doing again? And, like, I want to know what you're doing so you can, cause I started feeling like me again. And I think that when we come out of treatment, when we come out of cancer, and you're kind of hit in the face with like, what just happened? And now I got to get back to real life. Then it was like, doctor appointment, doctor appointment, doctor appointment, and all these things and all these doctors and all the navigators and, all the support. And then you come out, and then it's like kind of hard stop. And you're like, okay, where do I fit in my life now? Like, it's not the same. Your life isn't the same. And it's better. I promise you it's better. I know that, like, usually, like, right after, it really is probably one of the harder times directly after, because you're navigating, but once you get through that and tell yourself like, hey, listen, I just did something really hard. I'm trying to my life looks different now, and that's okay. And you have to give yourself grace for that. Give yourself grace to know, hey, my life is going to be different now. Now I have to think about putting myself first, because, you can't cover yourself with the mask, and then or the kid, and then it's always you first, and
Right.
then you can help others. And that is it has a whole new meaning once you come through something like that. It has a whole new meaning. It's like, you have to be able to take care of yourself, because if you can't take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of someone else? And it was me before, like this busy running mom. I was doing stuff for everyone else all the time. Like, I was last, like, my workouts were, here, there, not all the time. And, my eating wasn't always like on the run, running after kids. And now I'll try to take time, to prep something to eat before I run the kids, or I'll make myself a nice smoothie, or I take my vitamins, or I get to the gym, or do, yoga. And some of those things. Meditation is like so great. If you can spend even 10 minutes a day meditating, it's so good for you. But I think you kind of have to wrap your head around the new you, the new and improved
There you
you.
go. I
The
like
others.
that. New and improved, because people want to just go back to the way life was, and that's never going to be the case again.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk a little bit, because you talked about Dr. Jill and your experience with her, like, turned into a movie that she was filming that you are in. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. She's a wonderful lady. Um, One of my daughter's friends that she swam with, her mom and I got talking about the cancer one day, and she's like, "Oh, I have this great lady. You should get in to see her." And she's like, "She's got a wait list. It's pretty significant at the time. I think it was like 6 to 8 months." She's like, "But get on her wait list. Tell her I referred you." I said, "Okay." So I called right away. I got on her wait list, and I had been waiting for about 6 months. And during the 6 months was after all of my treatment, and I was doing the Anastrozole at the time. And so I had been on it, and I was just, I had some joint pain and fatigue and things like that. And I was like, I just want to find another way. I know there's got to be something better out there. And I was just waiting and waiting. And about 6 months in, I got a phone call from her office, and Allie over at her office was like, "Hey, Dr. Jill is trying to increase her online presence, and she's looking at doing a movie, and you were one of 4 people selected to participate in this documentary. And they're like, we could get you in on Monday. We can give you some discounts." And I was like, where do I sign? And I was like, yes, of course, I'd love to do that. And thank you so much. And when I met Dr. Jill for the very first time, both her and I just cried. We cried. We gave each other hugs. We told each other, "I love you." I mean, she is a doctor that, you go to doctors sometimes and you kind of feel like you're on a conveyor belt, or they're trying to get you in and out and in and out. And it's so quick. And you're just like, in the general population of like, you're this, this, and this. So this is the general thing, and they move you on your way. But she listened. She saw me. She, where I was. She met me where I was. Heard my story, heard my life, my backstory, all taken into account of, maybe what led me to where I was and my health at the time. And it was just, and I remember meeting, before the movie, and she said, I just want you to know, even before we start this movie, that this is not about the movie. It's about you and your health and getting you better. So if there's any time throughout this process that doesn't feel like that, let's talk about it. But I also felt like that from the producers and stuff too. They pretty much told me the same thing. So it was the producers, and Aaron and Daniel were amazing. And they came out to our house, and they, shot some stuff out here. And we did, my husband's a videographer. And so there was a part in the movie where we had a Zoom meeting, and she was on one, and my husband had filmed me here. And that's probably one of my most favorite parts of the whole movie, because it's very authentic on how our meeting was. But then when the cameras turned off, and her reaction and my reaction to just seeing each other, it gets me every time. So it's such a great documentary, especially if you're into functional medicine at all. Dr. Jill's story is quite remarkable. And she had, she's navigated through breast cancer, through Crohn's, and then through toxic mold poisoning. And so she really talks about all of that. And it follows a couple of different stories. So there was another guy with Lyme disease. So it's a great feature documentary, and it's called Doctor Patient. You can get it. You can stream it on YouTube. You can stream it on Prime Video now. So it's wonderful. And yeah, I'm very excited and very blessed that I was able to be a part of that. She's been a very big blessing in my life. If I can only help somebody like she's helped me, that would be my life's work,
I love that. And I think the website is drpatientmovie.com that
Yes.
you can go and find out more about it. And I did see it on Prime. You can rent it on Prime or buy it on Prime. And then I do believe that I found it on YouTube as well. So I haven't watched it yet, but I watched the trailer, and I'm really excited to actually watch the movie, because I'm a huge fan of functional medicine. I think it definitely has its place as complementary, not as a replacement for, but definitely complementary to regular medical treatment. And, if you know me, I'm all about finding alternatives and finding, what's best for you. So I'm really excited about that movie.
Absolutely. Well, great. I'm excited to hear that. Yeah,
Yes.
um,
And you're
it's
actually thinking about, getting more into functional medicine yourself, right?
Yes, actually, this year I'm looking at starting in the fall. So right now I'm CPT and yoga certified, with a couple of like extra, credit hours in different areas, Pilates and stuff like that. But I am looking at getting my functional medicine master's in functional medicine in starting in the fall, and working in this program there, and then maybe eventually going on to get a doctorate in either clinical nutrition. I don't know. I'm tossing around certain things, but I am really, really interested in it. I love the way supplements work, and how they work together, and with the synergy of your body, and really getting to the root cause of immune dysfunction and gastrointestinal issues. So I'm really, really interested in it. So I'm hoping to continue on that route.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And just helping to heal your body. I mean, going through cancer treatments, it doesn't just get rid of the cancer, it can wreak havoc on the body from a nutritional standpoint, from an immunity standpoint, from a muscular standpoint. And so there's so much that comes afterwards to help heal the whole body that regular allopathic medicine, I won't say they don't care about, but their job is to fix the problem, get rid of the disease, and then it's all about us trying to figure out how to heal everything afterwards. And sometimes I feel like we forget about that piece, and it's like, oh, the cancer's gone, hooray, hooray, and it is hooray.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
we also need to, my gut was a mess and I didn't even go through a ton of treatments. And I worked with a naturopath to, help repair all of that stuff. But there's so much that we need to look at other than just, hey, the cancer's gone. I can get back on with my life now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially with, chemo drugs and stuff like that. Like you
Mhm.
said, it really can wreak havoc on your gut, especially. And so being able to bring that, back up and thriving and, and I really feel like, and in my opinion, I feel like the gut is kind of like the brain of your entire body. Like anything that goes
It
in your gut
is.
is going to go everywhere in your body. So if your gut health isn't good, then the rest of your body is not going to be able to thrive.
Yeah.
So it is very, very interesting how kind of that all works. But I would agree 100% is, it gets rid of that cancer, but it kills all those cells, but it kills other good cells too. You got to get those back up.
Right. Yes. Gut health, metabolic health, that is all just super, super important. And we just don't take enough time to really focus on that, especially with the lack of nutrients and things in our food these days because of overprocessing and all of that. The supplements can be hugely beneficial in metabolic as well as gut health. So I love that, something that you probably never would have even thought about had you not gone through this whole
Yeah.
experience, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that. When you see a functional medicine doctor or a naturopath, they do a lot of tests for you personally. I mean, there
Mhm.
are like allopathic doctors do their tests that are generic, like general for like the general public. Like because you fall into this category, we're going to do these tests, like BRCA and, some of those genetics they do in the beginning. I think there's like 82 or 85 of them that they do in the beginning, typically when they're testing you for genetics. But then when you see a functional or a naturopath, they're doing so much more testing because they see you on such a bigger spectrum that they can really find different things. She actually told me that in my particular case, I've got two genes, DQ2 and a DQ8, that go through your body like Pac-Man and eat all the bad cells and spit them out through your lymphatic system. And mine were working so hard on the gluten in my gut that they missed the tumor cells, the cancer cells that
Wow.
create tumors. And so, obviously since then I've completely gone gluten free. But it's really interesting because I was never celiac. I'm Italian. I mean, I eat pasta and bread all the time. So do I miss it? Not that really. I feel so much better not eating it, but also
Mhm.
there's so many good alternatives out there now. I'm like, don't miss it really.
Oh,
So
it's so much easier to be gluten-free now than it used to be.
it really is.
Absolutely. Things are delicious
I know.
now that they never were before.
I know. So true.
Yes. All right. So, Jamie, where can people find you if people want to connect with you? We'll put the link to the movie in the show notes, but how can people connect with you if they want to learn more?
Sure. So I am on Instagram. My my user, I don't even know what you call
Your
my
handle?
my handle. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I'm old here.
Yeah.
Um, my handle is the breast method with an E at the end.
Okay.
That's on Instagram. I haven't posted on for a little bit just because I've been kind of going through those last two surgeries, but
Mhm.
I try to get on there and post some daily affirmations and things of that nature, workout little points and tips and tricks. So you can find me on there. And also, yes, through the doctor patient, you can go check that out. And we are working on a YouTube channel. We haven't really got it out and running yet, but that'll also be under the breast method. So you can keep an eye out for that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I usually ask this of my guests. So what is one piece of advice that you would give to someone who is just starting on this journey, whether they were just diagnosed or just getting into treatment? What's one thing that you would tell them to kind of help them be able to just navigate it a little bit better?
I would say don't let it consume you. And I would also say, you know what, in the grand scheme of things, anxiety medicine is okay. I was on anxiety medicine for the first, I don't know, year or so that I was going through everything, because it just helped my heart rate come down because I felt like my heart rate was just constantly up because I was always worrying. Um, But a little quick tidbit is the day that I was diagnosed was a Friday, and I spent the entire weekend in bed until that Sunday. And my husband came in and he said, "You're gonna get up. You don't even have to get dressed. Get your robe on, whatever. You're gonna come downstairs. I'm gonna pull a rocking chair into the driveway. And we're gonna watch our kids ride bikes today. That's it. I'm gonna get you out of this room." And I was like, okay. And at that point in time is when I was like, okay, I'm gonna pull up my big girl pants and I'm gonna deal with this, one step at a time. But I read a book, um, and I can maybe give it to you so you can put it in the list
Okay.
too. But it's a book that one of my breast navigators gave me from the hospital, and another lady at church actually gave me the same book. Um, but it goes through every bit of the breast cancer journey and all of the little tidbits along the way. And one of the very first things I read in that book was, "You are not a patient; you are a survivor." And from that very moment of just hearing like, okay, I'm about to go through this, and here I'm thinking I'm this patient, and and saying like, no, I'm a survivor. And I'm telling myself I'm a survivor. I'm going to get through this. I think it has a lot to do with your mindset and where your mind is, and telling yourself, you know what, I can make it through this. I could do hard things. I used to tell myself, there was a lady I would go see at the gym every day, and I would do this workout with her. And I said, oh my gosh, this workout's the hardest workout I've ever done. And if I could do that workout, I could do cancer. I used to, tell myself these things. So I think it's really, you got to just not let it consume you. Every scar tells a story of survival, and every bad wig is a reminder that we're stronger than any hair day or no hair day that life throws at us. So just keeping that in mind as you take each step along the way.
I love that. That is perfect advice. Yeah. So, what was the name of the book? I'll put it in the show notes, but what's the name of the book if people want to check
I
it out?
think I'm trying to remember off the top of my. I believe it's just breast cancer. It is through the hospital.
Okay.
So it actually says on the bottom like it was through Littleton Adventist whenever I was going there. Um, but I can't remember the author of it off the top of my head. I should have grabbed
Okay.
it before we started,
Okay.
but
Nope, that's fine. We'll put it in the show notes. So if you can get
yeah,
that to me, that would be great. All right.
absolutely.
Any parting words? Anything else that you want to share before we say goodbye?
I just want to say, we are all in this together. We are all a support group. We were kind of talking about this right before. There is no good or bad, uh, diagnosis or treatment. Just because your treatment is longer or shorter than someone else doesn't mean that you are less affected by cancer. Cancer is non-discriminatory. It's going to affect anyone and everyone that it can affect. And so it's just great to just know that there are people out there that will support you and will be here. And we're kind of like our own little group or our little clique. I met my breastie, I call her, in chemo, and her and I became our own support group because we just wanted to laugh and wanted to get through it together. And so there are a lot of us out there who are thriving and really trying to be that support for others. And so don't ever hesitate to reach out to any of us who have been through it, gone through it, and ask questions. Or if you want to cry or vent or laugh, you're always welcome in this little group.
Oh, perfect. All right. Well, Jamie, thank you so much for your time today. This was such a great conversation, and so uplifting and hopeful for others. And absolutely, like, if you're going through this, find somebody to talk to. We're all out there, always willing. We're a club now, the club that nobody ever wanted to join.
Right. But we're strong. We are
We're
strong.
strong. Yes. We're strong
Yeah,
because we have to be, because,
that's right.
how can you be so strong? Well, it's not like I have another choice.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right.
Hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
enjoy the rest of your day. And,
You too.
and thank you again so much for being here with me today. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Melissa. Thanks for having me. And thanks, everybody, for listening.
All right. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.